Hi, it's Rich Tehrani in the TMC newsroom. We're here in Boston, Massachusetts, and today we're speaking with Dave Menninger, who is with Vertica. Dave, how are you?
Hi, Rich. How are you?
Good. Thanks for being on the program.
Thanks for having us.
So your company is in the data warehouse database space. Can you give us some details,
Sure.
please?
So we have a technology. It's a database technology. It's used for data warehousing. And typically our customers are facing one of two problems. Their database is too slow or their database is too expensive. And so we help customers solve either or both of those problems. We do it with some unique technology. So we've taken a column-oriented approach to data warehousing. I can explain what that means in a little more detail. And we've taken MPP technology and applied that to the data warehousing space as well. So it's a combination of columnar and MPP technology to deliver fast, scalable data warehouses on industry-standard hardware.
So typically a database, let's say, would have customer information where there would be a column dedicated to customer number, customer first name, customer last name, and generally you would store that information one row at a time. It would be Rich Tehrani, customer number one, and that would get stored in a database. How do you differ?
So that's correct. And the reason it's stored that way is for transactions. That's the way you record the transaction. When I interact with you as a customer, I'm going to record your information in one row because I want to update all those fields simultaneously. However, when you're doing data warehousing, you're typically looking at not just Rich, but you're looking at Dave and everybody else in the database. And so you're looking at many instances of name and many instances of the account balance and many instances of the date of the transaction. And so you're looking across those values. And so we store the data the way you access it, by column. So we'll take all the names and store them together. We'll take all the transaction amounts and store them together. We'll take all the dates and store them together.
Okay, and so that speeds things up because that's how the database is usually being used.
Correct.
Right?
The biggest issue in performance for data warehouses relates to I/O. Most data warehouses are I/O bound. Disks can only spin so fast. There's physics involved, and you can only spin that disk about 15,000 times per minute. So the amount of performance you can get out of a disk is limited. However, if you can reduce the amount of I/O, you can speed up your database by doing less I/O. So if we're accessing, say, 5 or 10 columns out of a typical data warehouse, fact table might consist of 50 or 100. We even have customers with several hundred columns in their fact tables. If you're only accessing 5, 10, or 20 of those columns, you have a fraction of the total I/O versus accessing the whole row. So that's the real advantage, is reducing the amount of I/O. There's a secondary benefit, and that is compression. When you store things by column, you have uniform or homogeneous data types, and you, in storing them in a column orientation, typically sort them. So now you have sorted, homogeneous data, and you can get very good compression.
Like, for example, one of the columns might be city or state, I guess.
Well, the example I like to use is date. Let's say we're keeping 5 years of history, and we have billions of transactions in our database. That's only a total of about 1,800 unique dates. So why store those 1,800 values over and over and over again just because we had transactions? Store the date and the number of transactions that occurred on that date. So that's one of the compression techniques we offer.
So other than using columns, what is the other technology that you have to speed things up?
So the other technology is MPP technology, massively parallel processing. So we'll take multiple industry standard computers, Linux-based computers, hook them together in a cluster, and they share the workload. The other thing that it provides is high availability. Because we have multiple computers involved, we put a portion of the data on each of the machines, and we actually put a redundant portion of the data on another machine. So if one machine fails, not only do you get faster processing, but if one machine fails, the system can continue to operate.
So are the systems actually also operating as a RAID cluster?
In effect, it's RAID across multiple machines. But the concept of RAID, but using separate machines instead of separate disks as the mechanism for providing that redundancy.
What's the most the company can save on hardware using your product?
Well, we have customers that are literally saving $1 million. There's a cost analysis on our website, a total cost of ownership analysis for a 30 terabyte database, and in comparison with something like an Oracle, you can save literally $1 million on your hardware just by using our technology.
Does that include the electricity?
That includes the electricity.
Okay. Correct. We know there's this push towards going green, and database technology hasn't been an area that's been discussed very often in terms of helping companies save money and going green, but it seems like you're one of the companies in that space.
It's true. I wish I could say that we did it as a green initiative, but it's actually a very pleasant byproduct of the way that we've approached the data warehousing problem.
Well, many people believe that green in and of itself is not enough to get customers to change habits anyway, but it requires a solution that also saves money, which would be, in this particular case, you're doing something good for the earth, you're also doing something good for your bottom line, right?
Yep.
Two
Correct.
birds with one stone. And there seems to be a large amount of telecom companies in your customer list. Can you discuss that?
Sure. So many of the major telecommunications companies work with our technology: Comcast, Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, Level 3. The list goes on. And generally, these customers are dealing with one of several types of information. They're dealing with their call detail records. Those can tend to be very large databases. Or they're dealing with network traffic information and trying to analyze the traffic across their systems and be able to predict outages or understand outages and do capacity planning based on the network traffic.
Fantastic. So what can we expect next year from your company?
So we're generally on a 2 release per year cycle. So we have another release scheduled for the spring of next year and anticipate that there'd be an additional release later in the year. We're adding some additional analytics capabilities to the product in that first release. And we'll also be significantly enhancing some of the execution optimization strategies within the engine to speed up the processing even further.
And one last thing before we sign off. Can you give us a little overview of your founder and his history in the market, please?
Sure. Mike Stonebreaker is one of our co-founders, and Mike has a long and distinguished career in the database market segment. Mike is one of the creators of Postgres and Ingress, also created Illustra and Streambase. So Mike's been doing this process of enhancing and building upon the database technologies for quite some time, and Vertica is one of his latest projects.
Fantastic. Thanks for being on the program.
Thanks,
It was
Rich.
a pleasure.
Nice to meet you.